Welcome to the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and welcome to the Week 3 quarterback rankings for you. You can find these rankings up on my website at www.dffforge.com. There's a link down in the description. It's right below me right now. They will be updated throughout the week, but I will be going through these in tiers, and the hope is, for the most part, that these players will stick within their tiers, even if there is some movement up or down throughout the week. So you have a good idea of really where I'm placing the guys. As a reminder, this week Sunday, every week Sunday, you can come visit me 1 hour prior to kickoff with all of your start-sit needs questions. Please come and join me. And this will be the last week that the rankings will look just like this. I will be getting projections after week 3, as we will have some data sets to work from at that point, and that will help to shape my rankings as well. I've been just kind of going into these naked, but it will also give you more data to work off of yourselves. It will give you an expected range, and I'll let you know what the percentage chances are within that expected range of any guys scoring within that range, and you'll also get some expected floors, some expected ceilings, and there you go. So with that, let's find out how I did with my fades and my loves and my DFS buys last week for week 2. And we're going to start off with a big fail from Trevor Lawrence, who I had as a DFS buy if you weren't looking to go for the bargain bin kind of pricing guys. And that obviously did not work out at all. But as far as my bargain bin pricing guys, I had Mac Jones and Baker Mayfield there. Mac Jones finished 24th amongst quarterbacks. He probably got your money back, but he really didn't help you like win your week big or anything like that. And as far as Baker Mayfield, he finished 18th on the week. I think he was a little bit cheaper than Mac Jones, so that one worked out just fine. He was a part of my best lineup, not even one of them. That allowed you, if you spent wisely elsewhere, to have a really good lineup. And if I just hadn't gone with Jahan Dotson, sometimes I like to go with guys that I have on my bench in my fantasy league, so that way if they go off, I can feel a little bit better about them. Should have gone Puka. Failure on my part. Now, for my love'ems and my fade'ems, Mac Jones was also a love'em for me. Once again, finished 24th. I had him ranked 19th by the end of the week. And so a little bit disappointing, about 3 or 4 more fantasy points from him, and he could have outscored my fade'em though. So he came close. He was on that borderline. I don't know that he quite, made it though from my love'em list there, finishing 24th. And then as far as my fade'em, Dak Prescott finished as quarterback 17, had him ranked 18th as well, so came really close on the ranking, and I think it was pretty accurate to fade him. Kind of went 2 for 5 there or so, around 50% if we want to give myself a little bit of leeway on Mac Jones. Hopefully I did not cut a comment that I made about Ryan Tannehill. He was almost a love'em for me last week, finished as the quarterback 15, so I almost had a really good one for you there. Now let's look at week 3, look at my rankings, and over here on the far right hand side you can see the difference between myself and the current ECR rankings as of Tuesday morning-ish time period. And my first tier of quarterbacks looks like this. Patrick Mahomes is my quarterback 1, followed by Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and in at quarterback 5, we have my only for the quarterbacks, love'em, in Kirk Cousins, who I currently have 3 spots ahead of ECR going up against Los Angeles Chargers. And I don't usually like to put like the must-start kinds of guys into a love'em or hate 'em. Well, maybe a hate 'em. I keep saying hate 'em, but maybe a fade 'em. We don't hate 'em, we're just fading 'em. As far as Kirk Cousins goes, I don't know how you can not expect yet another great performance from Kirk Cousins in what we expect to be a shootout against the Los Angeles Chargers this week. So I'm all over them. He's a smash play for me. If you have him and you have Justin Herbert, this is the reason that I have a love on Kirk Cousins, is because you could have gotten him as your QB2. Well, in that instance, you're between a soft bed and a puppy. You can't really make a wrong choice there, in my opinion, and it's going to bother you all week on which one to play. I think that Kirk Cousins probably projects better, just based on the seasons that the two have had so far, but they've also had different opponents and whatnot, so it's really close there. Then I have a teensy-weensy tier 2 here at my quarterback 6 and 7 with Lamar Jackson and Tua Tagovailoa. I feel comfortable with these guys. They're just not quite smash hits for me. This Denver defense has been a good matchup. They have not been good They have a lot of good pieces. They've been good in the past, very recent past, but through 2 weeks, it really hasn't looked good, so that would help to make me feel a little bit better about Tua than not. And then, of course, going up against Indianapolis there for Lamar Jackson, you would think it's a good matchup. I'm a little concerned about the total upside in that matchup, but you're almost certainly going to be starting those two, unless, of course, you drafted Kirk Cousins, in which case I would go for that. Then that comes to my third tier at quarterback, starting off at my quarterback 8 with Trevor Lawrence, going all the way down to my QB 12 with Dak Prescott. And for this tier, I'm not 100% comfortable with these guys, and I don't know that comfortable is the best word. You're almost certainly going to be starting these guys once again, unless you drafted like Kirk Cousins as your QB2 with them or something like that. I don't recall where Dak Prescott got drafted, but I think he was also a QB2, so depending on who your other quarterback is, maybe you're starting him this week. What I will say about Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, and Dak Prescott is I feel safe playing those guys. I just don't think that they quite have the upside for them is going to be stifled this week. And then Justin Fields, Joe Burrow, obviously Joe Burrow with that injury and the performances so far with the season going up against the Los Angeles Rams, who have seemingly overplayed their hand so far, but they've been really quite good through 2 weeks. And then Justin Fields going up against Kansas City has all the upside in the world, yes, but based on Justin Fields' performance so far and the Kansas City's defense so far, which is a defense that has over the past few years in times where that offense needed them to be good and they needed that defense to step up, they have. And so I'm definitely afraid of Justin Fields this week. He is my starter. I will probably be playing him. I will not be surprised if it's a terrible, terrible week. And that's going to bring us into my next tier, starting off at quarterback 13 with Russell Wilson, going down Geno Smith, Brock Purdy, and quarterback 16 we have Matt Stafford. Another kind of smaller tier here. I felt pretty confident about the rankings overall this week. One spot where you can see I have a major difference in ECR here is going to be Russell Wilson. I have him 7 spots ahead of ECR. I really do like the upside. Once again, going up against Miami, it's all the upside in the world. And his finish last week is probably skewing my rankings here, and it probably shouldn't, because ultimately, Russell Wilson really has not looked good, at least for 4 quarters out of the first 4 quarters of this season. The offense, and when he's looked good, it's not like he's looked amazing. So I don't know how easily he'll take advantage of what has a lot of upside, but is also a decent defense in Miami. And so, you know what? I'm actually going to, for now, I'm going to move him down to quarterback 15. It was coming. It was going to happen throughout the week. And now the next move will be Matt Stafford, Russell Wilson. Will I move Matt Stafford ahead of Russell Wilson going up against Cincinnati? It's a rather good matchup. I'm scared. Let's move down 2 guys here because I'm scared to death about starting Daniel Jones or Deshaun Watson. So that is why I'm a little bit higher on Matt Stafford than the ECR currently. And as far as moving him ahead of Russell Wilson, they both have these good matchups. Which one do I think has a better chance of taking advantage of that? I don't know. It's so close. Up until this point in the season, Cincinnati has been the 8th best matchup for fantasy quarterbacks, even with that offense not doing great. So there's a very good chance that I'll move Matt Stafford up ahead of Russell Wilson. They're neck and neck right now. Let's go on to my next tier of quarterbacks, starting off at quarterback 17 with Daniel Jones and Deshaun Watson. I just spoke about those two. Definitely afraid of them this week. Danny Jones going up against San Francisco. We saw what that looked like up against Dallas just 2 weeks ago, and they didn't instill a whole lot of faith last week. Great second half, though. So we know the upside of Daniel Jones. It's fabulous. The consistency, the defense that he's playing against, though, is very questionable. Then for Deshaun Watson, he just really does not look comfortable in this Cleveland offense. They talked about it on the broadcast some, and this was, I think that was a very good point that they were making, is that this is a totally different offense than what he was running in Houston. And I think it's very clear at this point that he's just not comfortable in this offense. Like, vintage Watson is never going to be there in this offense, that's for sure. And so what I think the silver lining here for Deshaun Watson is a very unfortunate silver lining. With the injury to Nick Chubb, there's a chance that this offense could look to rely on that pass game just a little more. Their multi-million-dollar man, put him, you're up to bat next. Everything ran through Nick Chubb on this offense until now. Are they going to change their game plan a little bit? Will they open things up for that offense? Give Deshaun Watson those, spread out the weapons a little bit more, let him see the field a little more, and just get into a groove? That's possible. It's not a great matchup going up against Tennessee this week, though. And just not very high up on him. He is my fatum of the week in Deshaun Watson. Don't feel comfortable with that. Then at quarterback 19, I have Baker Mayfield going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, who have allowed the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. And then Baker Mayfield has also been able to take advantage of a couple of cupcake matchups so far this season. It's a super risky start because we all know what this Philadelphia defense is capable of. They have lost a couple of pieces in their secondary. I think that's like Avonte Maddox. I think that was kind of long-term. So all the better for Baker Mayfield. The numbers so far suggest another decent week for Baker Mayfield, but I'm not going out of my way to start him in a 2-quarterback league, though I am willing to take the risk on him, and maybe I'm stupid for that. Then at quarterback 21, we have CJ Stroud. He probably has the most pass attempts in the NFL. I didn't go to look at that, but I'm almost certain that that's the case through these first 2 weeks. And I think that we can expect that trend to continue after he was the quarterback 11 last week for fantasy points. I'm going to take the upside shot if you have to. Like, if I have to, I'll feel comfortable taking the upside shot on CJ Stroud going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in one of those matchups that, once again, we expect that trend of CJ Stroud throwing a lot to probably continue this week. And then I have Jordan Love in at quarterback 22, 3 spots behind the ECR. CJ Stroud 4 spots ahead of ECR, kind of obvious. I'm a little high on him there. Through the first 2 weeks, Jordan Love is the quarterback 2 in all of fantasy football. I am not expecting more of that in a game against a stout defense where I just don't think that the real-life play of Jordan Love has matched his fantasy output. So I'm expecting things to come down to earth a little bit this week for not necessarily Green Bay losing the game, just not throwing another 3 touchdowns and probably being pretty bottled up and inconsistent this game again. Then Kenny Pickett in at quarterback 23. He had a really rough start to the season in these first 2 weeks, but I'm looking for him to settle in week 3 against this porous Las Vegas Raiders defense. I'm going to be optimistic about him still. That was a rough start to the season. As far as my quarterback 24, Sam Howell, I'm going to take the upside shot on Sam Howell going up against this Buffalo defense. I am a little bit lower than ECR in him, so others are higher on that upside shot. What I will say as far as the good for him is he's going up against, the bad for him is actually Buffalo's passing defense so far has been quite good. I think maybe top 4 as far as fantasy points allowed so far this season. But he has a lot of weapons that he's going to be able to spread the ball around to in a matchup where we're expecting them to be trailing all game. So it's really setting up for a decent Sam Howell game, potentially a big game there with a lot of upside. Then at quarterback 25, I have Desmond Ridder going up against the single best matchup for quarterbacks so far as fantasy points scored against him in Detroit. You have to like that a lot, and Desmond Ridder just took advantage last week in a matchup against the Green Bay Packers, not such a bad defense, and still put up top 12 quarterback numbers being the quarterback 12. So quarterback 1 numbers being the quarterback 12 on the week. And I gave him the edge over Mac Jones. Here you can see I'm a little bit high on Desmond Ridder. Understandable. But when it comes to Mac Jones is... it's a matchup that on paper looks absolutely terrible for him going up against the New York Jets. It hasn't been so bad, like literally on paper, it hasn't been so bad so far this season through 2 weeks. So there's a chance that maybe that New York Jets defense doesn't quite live up to our expectations preseason for them. But either way, I'm taking the chance on Desmond Ridder there, obviously. And then this is my final tier, starting off at quarterback 26 with Mac Jones, followed by my quarterback 27. This is the only one we'll talk about here, Bryce Young, because after him, it's just a litany of poor defensive matchups for guys who we don't really see the upside for. Joshua Dobbs, real surprise in week 2. I don't think it's going to be easy to replicate that here against Dallas. And then, so for Bryce Young, I do have a little bit to say. Seahawks have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks in fantasy football. I couldn't quite get him ahead of Mac Jones for the reasons that I talked about that New York Jets defense. They have been a middling defense as far as fantasy points allowed so far. Mac Jones has been a middling quarterback to above middling probably for fantasy points scored so far through 2 weeks. So Given what Bryce Young has looked like and all, and the Seattle defense maybe has underperformed a little bit, I'm not trying to jump on that by any means. And then the one note here would be that Anthony Richardson I do not have ranked. Currently, he has that concussion, expecting him to miss a week. But if he were to go, this is a defense that I would not have been too excited to see him go up against in Baltimore, just because their front seven's really good, could have limited him significantly, potentially. What I will say is if he is a last-minute go, come Thursday, Friday, all of a sudden he's a go, the game planning for Baltimore will probably be aimed towards Gardner Minshew, or they're going to have to split their game planning. I don't know. I've never been in a locker room and helped to game plan, so I don't know if they ever do that. But usually they prepare for a quarterback, and I would have guessed they're going to be preparing for Gardner Minshew, at least mostly. And so if Anthony Richardson were to be activated last second or be good to go, then all of a sudden this defense could have planned for a totally different style of quarterback than they end up getting in Anthony Richardson, and that could spell disaster for the Baltimore defense. I would be optimistic for Anthony Richardson enough, even against that defense, that I would get him in this tier, probably ranked behind Trevor Lawrence yet, so between my quarterback 9 to 13, but in this tier, not in this tier. Editing Steve here with a cat in my lap, so trying to get to the mic. Totally forgot to record my DFS buys again. So, Kirk Cousins at 6,900 for small tournaments, I think is a good route to go. But I do think that a lot of people will be on top of Kirk Cousins. Same with, I want to say it was Dak Prescott. So, for large tournaments, I thought, hey, why not go with Justin Fields? Nobody is going to go with him. There's always a chance he could pop off in this matchup. So for $7,100, he's expensive, but you get yourself a guy who could go off. It's possible if you're looking to just differentiate yourself, play a little bit of contrarian at the quarterback, but you want a lot of upside there. That's the way to go. If you're looking for some bottom bin pricing, CJ Stroud and Baker Mayfield, both at the price of $5,300 would be good buys. I do have Baker Mayfield ranked ahead of CJ Stroud. I think CJ Stroud's a little bit safer of a play. Maybe not. I don't know. Probably. And then Desmond Ridder at $5,000 if you're looking to save a couple $100 more bucks, $300 more bucks than those other two guys at the bottom of the bin. Back to me saying goodbye. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe if you made it this far. My quarterbacks, my wide receivers, running backs, tight ends videos will be coming out over the next few days. So thank you very, very much. Have a good one.